You couldn't be around Elvis Presley and not fall in love with him. You couldn't be around him and not recognize the magnanimous person he
For
was.
nearly 50 years, there's one story about Elvis Presley that wasn't protected by the iron gates of Graceland, but by a quiet, dignified promise of love. While the world remembers the king, one woman remembers the man. She was his confidant, his primary caregiver, and for 4.5 whirlwind years, the love of his life. For decades, Linda Thompson held her silence, refusing to cash in on the scandal and speculation. But now, at 75, she's finally sharing the heartbreaking and intimate truth of her life with Elvis, a truth so raw and compassionate, it will change how you see the king forever. This isn't a story of celebrity and excess. This is a story about the staggering loneliness of fame, the crushing weight of a legend, and the devastating moments shared between two souls when the world wasn't watching. The year was 1972. By all accounts, Elvis Presley was on top of the world again. He'd conquered Vegas. His Aloha from Hawaii special was on the horizon, and the roar of his fans was as loud as ever. But behind the larger-than-life persona, the man was adrift. Recently separated from Priscilla, he was navigating an uncertain chapter of a life that had become incredibly isolated by fame. Into this world walked Linda Thompson. At 22, she was a hometown beauty queen, the reigning Miss Tennessee Universe, and a Southern belle with a deep respect for the local hero turned global icon. She'd grown up like so many in Memphis, watching his movies and memorizing his songs. A mutual friend invited her to a private late-night movie screening Elvis was hosting, a common way for him to escape Graceland's confines. When Elvis entered the theater, Linda saw something everyone else missed. It wasn't the swaggering king of rock and roll. It was the man underneath, who looked, in her words, profoundly tired in his soul. She saw a vulnerability that was both startling and magnetic. He wasn't just tired from performing. He was weary from the weight of being Elvis Presley. Their connection was immediate. He sat next to her, and they talked for hours, not as a superstar and a fan, but as two people finding a rare sanctuary in one another. He asked where she'd been all his life. With a youthful charm, she replied, "Growing up." It was a simple, honest answer that cut through the layers of pretense surrounding him. She didn't flatter him, she just listened. He, in turn, opened up in a way he hadn't in years, sharing stories about his mother Gladys and his deepest fears. In that darkened theater, the foundation of their relationship was laid. He was captivated by her warmth, and she was moved by the lonely boy she saw inside the world's biggest star. Later that night, he called her. His speech was a little slurred, and she first thought he'd been drinking, completely unaware of his reliance on prescription sleeping pills at the time. He told her with unguarded intensity, "I'm so happy that I met you tonight. Where have you been all my life? I need to be with you." It was strong stuff for a first meeting, but it was pure, unfiltered Elvis. From that first night, he felt deeply for her. Before she left for a family vacation, he insisted she visit Graceland to meet his father, Vernon. It was a huge deal, a sign he knew this was different. As Linda would later say on the night they met, she told him, "You should have married a Southern girl," and he agreed. She was that Southern belle, ready to cater to her man, a perfect fit. The fairy tale had begun, but neither could imagine the incredible joy and unimaginable heartbreak to come. From the moment Linda Thompson entered Elvis's world, her own life was turned upside down. Theirs wasn't a conventional romance. It was a total immersion into the strange, secluded nocturnal universe of the king. For the first full year, they were together 24/7. Linda's life started revolving entirely around his schedule, his needs, and his happiness. Graceland became their sanctuary, a gilded cage where they could hide from his fame. The upstairs area, still off-limits to the public, was their private haven. Here, they forged an extraordinary intimacy, reading spiritual books, praying together and sharing their deepest secrets. It was in these quiet moments that she came to know the real man. "I knew every facet of his being," she later said, claiming to be one of only a few people who ever knew him that intimately. Their life was a study in contrasts. By day, Graceland was a sleeping fortress. By night, it came alive. Elvis was nocturnal, and Linda adapted, sleeping during the day and living through the night, which further isolated them in their bubble. Inside it, he wasn't an icon. He was just a man who needed affection and a sense of normalcy. He was incredibly romantic, especially in those early days, showering her with attention and extravagant gifts. He had a term for a family hug with Linda and his young daughter Lisa Marie called mugging noggin, where he'd press his forehead against theirs with a fierce, loving intensity. Linda quickly formed a close bond with Lisa Marie, becoming a soft place for the little girl to land amid her parents' divorce. She also earned the respect of Elvis's entourage, the Memphis Mafia, becoming a stabilizing force for the whole household. Their relationship was complicated, to say the least. Linda described it best herself. "Ours was a complete relationship. We got to be everything to each other. He was almost 16 years older than I, and so it was natural for me to sometimes be the little girl. More often than not, though, I was the mommy, and he was the baby. Sometimes we were lovers. Sometimes we were brother and sister. We were all things to each other. And then there was the romance millions dreamed of," Linda famously described. Kissing him as taking two big fluffy marshmallows, pressing them together, and kissing them. That was the closest she could get to explaining his incredible softness. He smelled clean, like Neutrogena soap. He made love, she said, the same way he kissed, with his entire being. But even in this honeymoon phase, there were warning signs. His jealousy was intense. For a man who was the world's greatest sex symbol, he was deeply insecure and needed constant reassurance. Linda willingly provided it, stepping into the role of his ultimate emotional support. She had fallen in love, not just with the performer, but with the vulnerable, needy man who existed only behind Graceland's closed doors. Behind the fairy tale romance, a dark reality was unfolding. The very things that made Elvis a legend were also fueling a destructive spiral. Living in the Graceland bubble meant Linda had a front-row seat to the slow erosion of the man she loved. She witnessed his explosive temper, his constant cheating, and the escalating drug dependency that would ultimately seal his fate. Elvis was a man of dualities. He could be an angel dropped from heaven, but in a flash, he could become the devil incarnate. His temper was unpredictable, often triggered by frustration with his own body. Linda recalled him erupting in a rage over ice cream sandwiches. When a friend told her not to get him one due to his weight gain, Elvis screamed, "Don't you ever tell her what to do or not to do in my house." The outburst wasn't about ice cream. It was about his loss of control. Perhaps the most painful shadow was his infidelity. Elvis, she realized, just couldn't be monogamous. He would always get caught, and when confronted, he'd deliver a practiced speech. "Sweetheart, there is nobody in this world I care about like I care about you. Every time I am with some girl, it just makes me realize how much I love you." For a long time, young and blindly in love, she bought it. But each betrayal chipped away at her heart. The most dangerous shadow, however, was his prescription drug abuse. When they met, Linda was naive to this world. Elvis explained his pill use started in the Army and claimed it was healthy because a doctor prescribed them. But Linda quickly saw the devastating reality. His dependency rooted in real ailments. Like chronic pain had spiraled into a full-blown addiction. He took pills to sleep, pills to wake up, and pills to perform. Linda's life became a constant state of vigilance, like caring for a newborn. She'd stay up all night watching him, checking to make sure he was still breathing. "I loved him more than I love my own life," she confessed, and the pain of watching him self-destruct was unbearable. There were moments of pure terror. She once found him passed out, face down in a bowl of chicken noodle soup. Terrified, she pulled his head up by his hair and had to clear food from his throat to keep him from choking before giving him a shot to revive him. When he woke hours later, he stammered, "Mommy? I dreamed that I was dying." It was a chilling premonition. She found him in similar deathly situations more times than she could count. Living with his addiction began to warp her own sense of reality. He would be visibly impaired, yet seem totally unaware. She started to question her own sanity, realizing she was the only one who could see clearly as he descended further into a drug-distorted world. Despite his flaws, she also saw his deep humanity. He was a deeply feeling, empathetic person who loved sad songs because he believed there was great joy in sadness. And he was profoundly lonely. He confessed to her, "Honey, you know I am an intensely lonely person." When she pointed to his fans, he'd dismiss their love. "They don't know the real me," he'd say. "They don't know the little boy inside me like you do." By late 1976, the all-encompassing love that had defined Linda's life had become an unbearable weight. The constant vigilance and emotional exhaustion had brought her to a breaking point. Leaving Elvis wasn't an act of anger, it was an act of survival. The shadows had consumed their world. His health was in a steep decline, and his drug use was a life-threatening reality. Linda, still in her mid-20s, saw a bleak future. She confessed she didn't want to be a widow at 27. She dreamed of a normal life, marriage, children, things Elvis's world could never offer. The thought of bringing a child into that chaos was unthinkable. After years as his caregiver, she came to a devastating realization. "I can't spend my life trying to keep you alive." The breakup in December 1976 was a tearful, amicable conversation, filled with love and regret. She knew he wouldn't change, not because he was a bad person, but because he was trapped in a spiral he couldn't escape. In an era before modern rehab centers, there was no place for him to get help. He once admitted to her, "I'm a little self-destructive." He knew it, but was powerless to stop it. Linda told him, "If you ever need me, I'll be here." They remained, friends, speaking on the phone regularly. His reaction to her departure was heartbreaking. His aunt, who lived at Graceland, later told Linda that after she left, Elvis went upstairs, sat at his piano, and sang Unchained Melody. The lyrics of Longing were a mournful cry from the lonely king in his castle. "Oh, my love, my darling, I've hungered for your touch a long, lonely time. God speed your love to me." Just a few months later, Elvis called her late one night. His voice was soft and weary. He wanted to know if she was happy. The conversation was heavy with unspoken regrets. It was the last time they would ever speak. That final heartbreaking call still haunts her. Just 8 months after Linda walked away to save herself, her worst fears came true. In August 1977, she got a phone call that shattered her world. It was Elvis's 9-year-old daughter, Lisa Marie. Her small voice delivered the news. "My daddy's dead!" Linda stood there, catatonic. While the world mourned an icon, Linda mourned the man she had tried so desperately to keep alive. In the chaos that followed, tabloids and publishers offered huge checks for a tell-all book. Linda could have cashed in on the tragedy, but she refused. She chose a path of dignified silence that spoke volumes. Her reason was simple. She wanted to protect the memory of the man she knew, not exploit the legend. To her, Elvis wasn't a commodity. He was a brilliant, fragile, wounded soul who had given everything until there was nothing left. She felt a fierce need to protect what little dignity he had left. For nearly 40 years, she kept their private world locked away. When she finally published her memoir, A Little Thing Called Life, it wasn't a scandalous expose. It was a story of compassion, written to honor the complex, flawed, and beautiful human she had loved. Her words have reshaped the narrative of Elvis's final years. She painted a picture of a very good soul battling a terrible illness in an era that didn't understand it. Drug addiction, she emphasized, does terrible things to good people. Her perspective provided much-needed context and empathy. She reminded the world that we do a tremendous disservice to put people on a pedestal because we don't allow them to be human. Elvis was profoundly human, with incredible light and deep shadows. Linda's greatest act of love was embracing both, seeing his struggles not as moral failures, but as the tragic results of a life lived under impossible pressure. The story of Linda Thompson and Elvis Presley is a profound lesson in love, loss, and loyalty. Linda didn't just share a life with Elvis, she shared his humanity. She was there to love him, not fix him. When she had to leave, it was to save herself from being consumed by his tragedy. For decades, her silence was a testament to her character. When she finally spoke, her words offered compassion, not scandal. They reminded the world that behind every icon is a person, often broken and beautiful, struggling just like the rest of us. At 75, Linda Thompson's truth doesn't diminish. The king of rock and roll, it makes him real. It gives his tragic end a new layer of understanding, seen through the eyes of unconditional love. Her story is the final, heartbreaking verse in Elvis's song, a testament to the lonely boy from Tupelo who, for a few precious years, found a home in the heart of a woman who truly saw him. What are your thoughts on Linda Thompson's story and her unique relationship with Elvis? Share your reflections in the comments below. We'd love to hear your perspective on this powerful and complicated love story, and if you were moved by this deep dive into music history, please like this video and subscribe for more untold stories of the icons who shaped our world. Thank you for watching.